It is day number 81 of the self-quarantine today here in Los Angeles, and the protest, the manifestations, and the movement is still continuing today. Uh, that is being led by the Black Lives Matter organization. And most of the protest that was happening here is actually going to be the sixth day of protest here in the area of Los Angeles. And it was all over the place. No matter where you went, there was always some sort of protest that was going on. A couple of them that was very highlighted earlier today. It was in Hollywood and Beverly Hills area. It's been very peaceful. A couple of uneasy moments, but so far there have been very good, and there hasn't been any fights between protests and police. Maybe a couple verbal here or there, but so far peaceful. And then there was another protest that happened later today, and it was actually in the front of the Los Angeles mayor house, and there was like thousands and thousands of people, just a wave of people in front of the mayor's house, just to let him know that that Black Lives Matter and no justice, no peace, and the other slogans that are going on that about equality, about justice. And then also today in downtown, there was actual protest in front of Los Angeles Police Department HQ, and there was a beautiful moment where the protesters asked deputies and other officers to kneel, and I guess one of the sheriff deputies was talking to the protesters and actually kneeled, and a couple more actually joined in with him, and they were black, Hispanic, and white, all kneeling. Not everyone, but just a couple of them that wanted to, show their solidarity with them. But so far, they said that the numbers of arrests so far from this protest that have been happening so far for the sixth day in a row, it's been over 2,700 arrests. Now they say, by a study from the LA Times, that about 92% of them of the arrest are people who didn't disperse or was a violation of curfew. So that means that anywhere between 10 or 8% are the actual looters or the demons I said before. And speaking about the demons, I'm talking about you guys, looters, the arsonists, the anarchists, the people that love chaos. You might think you're slick, stealing, setting things on fire, vandalizing things, but guess what? LAPD, FBI just announced that they're collecting all video evidence. If it's a security, if it's news, if it's a cell phone, and all of the protest and looting that they've been given, the footage of, will now be evidence for future arrests. So when all this is over, karma is a bitch. I'll tell you that right now. And and you might be saying, well, they can't possibly find who's done it. They're covering their faces. I don't know about you, but the FBI have ways to see behind the masks. They have that technology. Don't quote me on that, but I know for sure. And then something else that happened today. Uh, it was Blackout Tuesday. Now, what is that? So I'm just gonna give you just like a quick summary. So Blackout Tuesday, it's a movement that happened earlier today. It's an initiative to go silent on social media to reflect on recent events and stand in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement. So everyone in Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, they were all putting just a blank screen and putting like the hashtag Blackout Tuesday, and also putting like their solidarity of support of Black Lives Matter. So it was good and all, but along the line there was actually a little bit of confusion because a lot of people were using Black Lives Matter as the hashtag, and that was actually quite dangerous. And because people that hashtag Black Lives Matter in the protests, they use it in order to get valuable information about safety when they're doing protests. So a lot of their feed was blank, and they had to scroll down in order to get the useful information. So they told everyone to stop putting Black Lives Matter and the blank image. So that's what is happening so far here regarding the protest here in Los Angeles. So moving on, I'll be talking about the coronavirus situation here in Los Angeles. The number of cases and deaths continue to rise. That hasn't changed much. So far, they say that there hasn't been any significant spikes, even with the protests that have been going on in the past few days. However, the health department does say that the numbers might not be that accurate because of all the testing sites that have to be closed since yesterday because of the protests. And only one testing center was available for the past 2 days, which was the LA Dodger Stadium, and nobody knows how many people went there. A lot of people opt out, it was too far, or they were too afraid to go there because depending on what roads were closed because of protests. But so far, they do say that a couple of the testing sites will be available and will be open tomorrow. And it all depends on what the protest outcomes are. So if they are peaceful, they'll open more and more. But if they turn violent and destructive, I think they'll remain closed. That's what they said on their website. And the health department, both from Los Angeles and California, urge everyone that's involved in the protest to get yourself tested because you don't know if you have contracted the virus, and that's a precaution because you've been close proximity with a lot of people in a small area, even if you're outside. So they urge everyone to get tested and just to be safe about this because it'll be a tragedy that after all this is said and done and those passionate protesters that are fighting for something that is right tragically lose their lives because of COVID-19, because COVID-19 is still happening even in the midst of a protest and a movement that is going on. So lastly, everyone, that is it for today's video. Everyone, stay strong, stay safe.